The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of CNS Channel 6.
Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to another edition of Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have another informative and interesting one for you. You know, the 2 weeks gone by, what I did is decided to focus on what was happening in the news and bring sort of a recap in terms of what would have happened in the weeks past. We continue to do that this week. However, I have a live guest in studio who will be doing that. You'll see and hear from him a bit. The fact is, the issue that we're going to begin today's program with, there's been much ventilated on it in the public domain. Some persons are against, some persons are for. The government have been, some nasty words would have been used to describe government action or non-action regarding this issue that we're going to be dealing with today. Again, we had people writing in the newspapers, people on social media. The minister responsible himself had to come out and make a statement. Who is the person who's on this program today? I know he has all of his information, his ducks in a row, and his facts are with him. That's why I was trying to delay a bit before introducing him to you. I should say reintroducing, because even though he has not been on Facing the Nation in a while, he's no stranger to Facing the Nation. So now it is my pleasure to welcome back to our program the Minister of Citizenship. Of course, you know, a new ministry, a new department actually would have been created in this administration because we felt the need to address citizenship issues frontally and directly, instead of having that particular department or those areas and sectors hidden in a larger ministry. So it is my pleasure to welcome back to Facing the Nation the Honorable Winston Felix. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Malika, for your kind words. Happy to be with you.
All right, great, fabulous. Viewers, I was rambling on a bit earlier. When you hear me say Winston Felix and I say citizenship, most of you who are au fait and you've been updated with what would have been happening in the news, mind you, let me warn you, most of the words that I'm going to use today are words that we have seen either used by the government or by just general members in the public and in the media, because again, I always believe that if you're not an expert on certain issues, you should not necessarily be making conformed statements on these issues. Now, some Guyanese have gone into panic mode because of a certain fear, and note, see my air quotes there, of a supposed influx of Haitians. I want to, even though we've seen and heard much of it, I want to take this conversation a step at a time, because again, I think when so many people are commenting, who are not experts, the real issues get lost here. Honorable Winston Felix, the most basic question, is there or has there been recently an influx of Haitians coming to Guyana?
Malika, let me say that from my knowledge, Haitians' arrival in Guyana is nothing new. As far back as 1982, in another life, I had a certain job at the airport. And the Haitians have been passing through Guyana since then. So for me, the Haitian arrivals now are no different from what they were at that time. At that time, they were direct flights coming from Trinidad and Barbados to Guyana, right? And the Haitians use those routes. After a while, when the travel arrangements from Haiti became more stringent, the flow ceased. Within recent times, there has been Copa and other airlines from Santo Domingo or from the Dominican Republic. And the Haitians would take that route. As you know, Haiti and Santo Domingo is one country divided into two. It was once Hispaniola when discovered by Columbus, and after a while we had the French side, which is Haiti, the Spanish side, which is the Dominican Republic. So they would walk across to the Dominican Republic and join the flight, come to Panama and enter Guyana. Earlier, when we took government in 2015, the Haitians required visas, and they were getting those visas, and they were arriving. The problem then is that they didn't get access to Suriname. Eventually, the CSME facilities were broadened to include those countries which were in the Caribbean, which were outside of CARICOM for one reason or another. And so Haiti was included. Now, once Haiti was included into CARICOM and had agreed to certain aspects of the CSME facilities, they were entitled to arrive in Guyana without a visa. They were entitled to be permitted 6 months stay in Guyana. And in those circumstances, the Haitians in Guyana have all come through that system.
Because it's easier.
Right. And so their arrival in Guyana, and I can deal extensively on this, is legal. About 2 years ago, a certain situation developed, and we dealt with it where the Haitians were concerned with respect to minors, children traveling with adults, and we formed up on that. The situation now is that the Haitians arriving know the system better than, or as good as the immigration officers, because they arrive with the documentation as correct as it could be. Right? All the documentation are in order. So there was much huff and puff about the Haitians in Guyana. They were publicized with intent to probably shame the government and the Haitians. But their arrival here has been very legal in the first instance. And secondly, we work in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Protection and with the Guyana Police Force. And we have not been able to unearth one instance where a Haitian has been trafficked or has been smuggled. Those were the earlier claims of the opposition. I noticed in today's papers, in two of today's papers, the tone seems to be
Shifting?
lessening and shifting now that the government is callous about in terms of the advantage being taken on Haitians who are being smuggled or trafficked.
Minister Felix, even before because I'm happy that you talk about the statement, because one of the things we find happening, and I want to deal with the general public and our citizens, even before we talk about government and opposition here. And the reason I'm asking this is because at times when our leaders make statements, when I say leaders, I don't necessarily mean government alone, but when irresponsible statements are made, people, our citizens here at home, take it, and sometimes it creates a panicky situation. Why at this point would you say, because I've heard arguments where people are saying, good, even though, look, of course, speaking the ordinary way that we speak when we're out here, even though Felix saying it's legal, I'm a Guyanese, why should they just be allowed to just, even if Guyana is just being used as a route to go elsewhere, wherever else they're going, why should Guyanese at this time not be panicking and not be concerned about this, for want of a better word again, this influx of Haitians here? What would you say to bring some sort of calm and peace among our ordinary citizens?
Guyana is a welcoming country. And along with that, we have regional and international obligations to satisfy. One of our international obligations, regional obligations, is in the CSME. We have to allow all within the fold of the CSME to enter and leave Guyana within the confines of the law. Their entry is prescribed in law 6 months upon arrival. That is, once you find them suitable to be admitted into the country. And so we are welcoming. We have our international obligations to comply with and to adhere to. But Guyanese should be the last. Should be the last to be critical of visitors to their countries. Because we have a very large diaspora in every country in the Caribbean, in North America, in Europe, everywhere you go, you find the Guyanese. What we support, however, is regular migratory practices.
Okay.
That is what we support. That our visitors should enter Guyana through legal ports upon a visa with a definite period of stay, and that they should leave at the end of that period of stay, and while in the country, be respectful to the laws and people. So, but the world is changing. People are moving freely back and forth, in and out. We have oil discovered in Guyana. The extraction of that oil requires certain skills which are unavailable right now to Guyanese, I can tell you that. And so we have to be welcoming persons here who can assist our national development program insofar as the oil and gas industry progresses. So we can't be stigmatizing visitors and being resentful to visitors. We have to be welcoming, but ensure that our laws are being respected at the same time.
Okay, all right, great. Viewers, if you're now tuning in, this is a conversation with the Minister of Citizenship, the Honorable Winston Felix. I should also let you know on this issue, of course, we're talking about this outcry and all of the noise that would have been made earlier in the week and so on regarding Haitians, what to some people is an alarming number of Haitians coming to Guyana. I should also let you know that a little later on in the program, I have a very brief statement from His Excellency, the President of our country, Brigadier David Granger. Yesterday, after the GCOM meeting, he had a very brief press conference with members of the media, and the question regarding the same issue was posed, and he made one statement. And after bringing you that statement, Facing the Nation is not going to deal with it anymore. But I just thought that we needed to get some clarity from Minister Felix himself. Minister, I know before I asked you about why Guyanese should be calm at this time and should not go into a state of panic, and I see the other word being used too is xenophobia, basically fear of the unknown. I know you were also going to talk about the government and the opposition, and then the government would have been accused of some nasty things regarding trafficking in persons earlier this week. I think one of the young opposition members unfortunately said that government was promoting and supporting trafficking in persons because of, obviously they didn't have the correct statistics and all of that and the reasons and the procedures. I'd like your take on government's position that it is so easy to attack and, again, because it's the silly season, try to use these things to, as you said, embarrass the government.
Malika, I have found that the statements emanating from the opposition and their supporters on this issue have been very irresponsible, and they have no basis for making these statements. And it is done, in my view, with the simple intention to embarrass the government, confuse the population, mislead the population, because they do not have the facts. And this is an election period. So they want to show up themselves that they are exposing irregularities with respect to immigration issues and the Haitians being perpetrated by the government, when in fact it is far from the case. What I have, based on my interaction and collaboration with other agencies, is that more than pre-2015, and in this year in particular, this government has made far more cases than any period within the era of the PPP. Right? We have had persons, 7 cases in trafficking in person for this first half of the year, where 13 persons have been charged. And so far we have 3 convictions.
Yeah.
Those in the PPP who want to malign the government on this issue now have to do their own research on their work pre-2015. We are intolerant to any abuse of human beings, be it through trafficking in persons, be it in the labor industry, be it smuggling. We are intolerant. And we have had, the Ghana police force has been having, I'm aware of it, several raids on places suspected of trafficking in persons, to the point where 131 persons in the first half of this year were already taken into custody and questioned. None has been a Haitian. We have 11 Guyanese females, 112 Venezuelan females, 4 females from the Dominican Republic, 1 Brazilian and 3 females. All of them were not charged, probably because there was insufficient evidence, but it highlights the activity level of law enforcement in combating trafficking in persons, human smuggling, whatever it is. So for the opposition to jump around and peddle misinformation to the public that government is callous, government is callous to the circumstances of the Haitians in Guyana and other nationalities.
Using Haitians for votes?
Yes, using, that's another one, using Haitians for votes. Now, we have to be really dumb to take persons who speak a French Creole, who could hardly be converted in 6 months to be speaking any kind of English, and to register them for vote. First of all, it smacks of electoral dishonesty, and I know I would be fired immediately, instantly, if the president knows that I, as a minister of this government and cabinet, am registering Haitians or any nationality to party list. Out goes me. I know that instantly. Because it is a folly position, an act that is full of folly. The moment those persons show up, the officials at the polling station will recognize it's not a Guyanese. Questions will be asked. So how can we, as a government, perpetrate or attempt or even consider perpetrating an act like that? So that is out of the window, and that undermines the specious nature of the allegations being made by the leader of the opposition in the first instance, and those who follow him. It's like the blind leading the blind.
Amen. Yes, indeed. Again, viewers, if you're now tuning in, my conversation is with the Minister of Citizenship. Of course, because he has not been here for a while, I'm not going to have him because he has made himself and the government's position very clear on, in terms of the Haitians coming to our country and Guyana's policy on, because it's basically part of our policy on foreign relations. And interestingly enough, he did say, and I agree with him, most of you, especially who have relatives living abroad, you would agree with him, Guyanese should be the last to talk about anybody going to any strange land, because indeed we are everywhere. But as I said, I'm not going to have him dwell on that for much longer unless there are any other issues regarding that particular issue that he needs to clear up. If you're now joining us and you missed his clarity on the Haitian issue, of course, as usual, this program will be loaded to my YouTube channel and Facebook pages a little later on. But I know some of you are currently in Facebook land, in social media land, and you are watching us. For those of you who are watching us via the CNS Channel 6 Facebook page, we thank you very much for tuning in. Again, we've gotten most of that out of the way. I want to talk to Minister Felix now about the progress that would have been made since 2015, since the formation of this ministry. I know people are still have not yet understood that it really and truly is a big department. So for those of you who are saying ministry, fine, we'll go with that. Much strides would have been made, Minister Felix, under your watch in terms of breaking down the backlog and having various immigration departments and passport offices and so on in various towns and communities. Let's talk about some of the significant strides that your department, your of course yourself and your staff would have been made, all in the name of bringing comfort to Guyanese people where these issues are concerned.
When we took office, His Excellency made it very clear to me that during his campaign, two issues surfaced regularly as wherever he went. And that is the difficulty to get a passport and a birth certificate. And so I was charged with dealing with that issue. Instantly, some work was done within the immigration department, and I had cabinet's approval to have a supplementary budget, and with that supplementary budget we brought in equipment, and that equipment improved the capacity of the immigration department to produce passports.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, while that was being done, I observed there were countless numbers of criticisms of the functioning of the immigration department in the newspapers. I can recall at least 5 letters between 2015 and 2016. And the letters were justified because anyone who visited the office, the passport office on Camp Road, on any morning, and I have photographs of what I'm about to disclose.
Okay.
There were long lines from the door of the immigration office going north onto Barrack Street, turning into Barrack Street. For nationals of a country to be put through that experience, lining up from about 2 o'clock in the morning until 6:37 in the evening to acquire a passport. It was really intolerable. And it was stressful on the immigration staff because they were working non-stop and tirelessly from 7 to 7. To dissolve that difficulty, I visited Linden with the late Sandra Adams. And when I say like the late, for me, great Sandra Adams. And she took me around. And the first act of decentralization occurred when I met with the officer in charge of the NIS in Linden. And with that interaction, we got space where every Monday or Tuesday, I think, members of the immigration department went up there and took applications. One day delivered passports, another day, and we've been doing that from around 2016, 2017, until quite recently. In Borbis, we were searching. Borbis had a semi-operations with the police, and we were able to improve on that, improve on the facilities, and create a similar situation to Linden. But what happened is that we got the London Borbis force. And so the department, we got approval from the budget to construct that building. The building was constructed, and right now it is being tested.
Okay.
We had internet issues. We had power issues for us. After the building was completed, we installed the furniture. We had power issues, we had internet issues. And right now, under test, we have discovered other issues in Borbis which are being addressed.
Okay.
Linden building has been completed, and last week we commenced running a similar test in that facility, so that so far I know that in Borbis we do at least 50 applications a day.
A day.
It's more, but I'm being conservative,
Okay.
right? Because it goes over 70. When I'm saying 50, just to be conservative,
Okay.
and over 40 in Linden.
In London.
And what that has done is to remove the burden of persons having to come to Georgetown. They go in one day, they make their applications, and in 7 days, their applications return to them, at both locations. And the facilities are available not in Linden, not just in Linden. Demerara River, Aichuni, Kokwani, they can utilize it in Borbis. Region 5 can access it.
Access it. At the end of the day,
Right.
it beats traveling all the way, coming all the
Right.
way to Region 4.
In addition, I was talking to the Secretary, the Consul General of New York yesterday. And New York is an area where, when we started, we used to be approximating 100 and a little more passport coming from overseas. Now the numbers almost reach 300.
Okay.
Guyanese who
300 per what?
for a month.
Ah.
No. It's more. The monthly average is more.
Okay.
The monthly receipt of passports is more. Sometimes per week when they come, it's over 100 from New York alone. The figures are increasing daily to 200. So she was in praise because she has been able to return passport to our Guyanese in the diaspora, New York diaspora, much faster than it was done before. And even with that improvement now, our citizens in New York are seeking greater speed, right? So with that improvement, they are encouraged. These are all improvements in terms of passport services being delivered to the country, citizens of this country. It is the president's wish that government services be delivered in capital towns. And so far, while we have completed New Amsterdam and Linden, Letham's office is within the procurement system right now.
Okay.
We've budgeted for it, and it is in the procurement system. And I hope that in the near future we'll see Region 2 and Region 7 being treated similarly. But that is on the passport. In terms of board certificates,
Yes, that's another big one.
right, which is also problematic. We were in the past manually searching, but we followed up on a program to digitize the records in the GRO, the General Registrar's Office. We followed up on that, and we are almost at the stage of completion, to the point where the digitized records are now, we have done so far that the digitized records are now being used to search for applications. I can tell you, it is a fantastic job is being done there, because now that you're having elections, everybody suddenly discovered that they don't have a board
Board
certificate.
certificate,
And so even though we have been doing outreaches, the flow of application is enormous. And hadn't it been for that digitized system, which we are test running now, we would have been hard put to provide those board certificates. I've just come from office where Region 9 had sent 72 board certificates. We were able to trace 51 and to return, we will be returning them shortly. And similar we have for New Amsterdam, we have for other communities, all enclosing on the staff at the GRO for immediate action. But the staff, the working conditions are there now, which has enabled the staff to work with much greater speed rather than the slothfulness which the manual operation had allowed.
Okay. That indeed is a mouthful on, again, this is
I should say
everything.
also that by the time we finish with the board certificate digitization process, we ought to be able to produce a board certificate tops 5 days, tops. It can be 3. If I have it my way, citizens are to be able to walk in, sit down,
And have it on.
and walk out with the board certificate once the records are in order. If I have it my way, but there are other issues to consider.
And
Because I don't think that in this situation now, that we need to have people waiting excessively long periods, a month.
I was about to ask, what is the full, but that is the current waiting
a
period?
month.
1 month?
I dislike waiting, and I understand how Guyanese feel having to wait so long and sometimes not even getting it.
Ah,
So, in what has to be done now, and which is a problem in the challenge throughout the country, is that boards must be registered at the time of birth.
Minister, Minister Felix, I must interject here. Why what I don't understand, forgive me, and viewers probably are clearer than I am on it. I may be a bit naive. Why is registering births, why is it so problematic, especially in 2019?
Well, look, my assessment of the situation is that there are attitudinal issues and there are cultural issues. In the rural and hinterland communities, you have some cultural issues, like people who are, well, don't let me deal with this one first. In the hinterland communities, there is the problem of distance sometimes. See, so even though this bedside registration has been introduced, you have in certain areas people who give births at home, in the villages, and all around wherever the situation happens. And as a result of that, the registering of that birth is delayed. And some people don't see it as essential for them to register the birth of the child until some important event confronts them, and then they run in. Now, my thing is, the birth should be registered. Once the birth is registered, and I should back up a little, mothers know that they will be giving birth, and therefore, there are certain things which must be done. The child must be named. So why not write down the name of your child before birth? Right? And have it to produce to somebody who will write down exactly what this child's name ought to be. Then there are other issues where religion and custom will have it, that certain names got to be extracted from certain books. How much of that is followed, I don't know. But it has been raised as an issue which delays registration at the time of birth.
Okay.
And some people just don't.
Just don't.
Right? And when that happens, it is to the disadvantage of the child. Because the child would need to have it, vaccinations and so on.
Exactly.
And you will have, there must be this record of the child's birth to give the child an identity, a name, to protect the child in 80 years against abuse. The child has to attend school. So all these areas are very essential, and I think a special education program is
Exactly.
needed for
Yes.
young ladies, young mothers, fathers. All should be involved to ensure that this very important aspect of a child's life is given attention from the moment the child is born.
Indeed. Minister Felix, I mean, yeah, and you talked about it even before I mentioned it, this public education awareness for that. Maybe the Ministry of Citizenship can probably take that on in terms of reminding people, especially, and you did say young women, the importance, and families in general, because, you know, most times it's not one person who raises a baby. Most times it's the entire family. And, you know, just to remind them of the importance of registering these births. Minister Felix, you did give a lot of information. I know the first thing we began is with the issue of clarifying the statements and the misinformation being placed out there by the opposition and their supporters regarding the so-called influx, I should say sudden influx, and I'm using the word sudden now because you did chronicle it, saying that, you know, this is not now happening. We also thank you for coming and clarifying that and sharing with us. I doubt there is any other thing major happening with the Department of Citizenship. If not, as always, we thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
All right, great. Viewers, of course, this is Facing the Nation. I did promise you that the president himself also made a brief statement on the issue of Haitians after the question was posed to him by a member of the media. So what we'll do now, the press briefing that was held yesterday is not only about that. The press briefing came after the president's meeting with GCOM commissioners from both sides. So we'll go to that clip. Before we do that, once again, thank you very much to Minister Winston Felix, Minister of Citizenship. Thank you very much to him for coming and sharing. We appreciate as always. Of course, this is Facing the Nation. Stay with us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Please be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. His Excellency the President and a team of government ministers just met with the chairman and members of the Guyanese Elections Commission. The meeting was concluded. The President and the Director General will now address you on what took place at that meeting. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and thank you for coming today. At my invitation, the chairman and all of the commissioners came to a meeting at the presidency at 10 o'clock this morning. We had a very simple agenda, and it was important in our view that we address the topic of general and regional elections, which is the concern of every Guyanese at present. I wanted the opportunity to welcome the chairman to our first meeting after her selection, and it was a very cordial, consensual process in accordance with what the CCJ had advised, that we should move towards consensualism and away from unilateralism. From the commentaries in the press, I feel that there is widespread public approbation of her appointment. And in that regard, on behalf of the government, I extended congratulations. As you know, both sides, the government side and the opposition, had appointed a working group, and they were involved in hammering out the selection over a period of several days. And we were very happy that at the culmination of those efforts, the leader of the opposition and I were able to quickly reach an outcome which, as I said, is favorable to all parties. Although it is early in the tenure of the new chairman, I don't think it was inappropriate to meet at this time to give her the assurance that the government is going to continue to observe the independence of the Elections Commission. It will not dictate, it will not interfere, it will not intrude in the work of the Commission. It will observe all of the roles and responsibilities of the Commission given to it by the Constitution. So at this stage, I'll ask the Director General, who was present at that meeting, to continue to brief you. It was a remarkably brief meeting, and it was a good atmosphere, and I believe that it served the purpose in giving the Commission certain assurances. Colonel Hammond?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to add to what the President has said, and the President, I believe, has actually covered the meeting in its entirety, because it was a very brief meeting in which the President laid out what the government's position is in relation to credible elections, to the consequential orders of the Caribbean Court of Justice, the way forward, and the political situation in Guyana. All of these topics are covered by booklets which have been produced by the government and would have been circulated, or if not, would be circulated to the Commission. It is important to note that His Excellency the President made it very clear that the government will continue to provide all of the support necessary for the Elections Commission to execute its mandate. Additionally, the President made it clear that we were interested in early elections and in credible elections, and that the government will not dictate in any way to the Commission how they will do their work. The Commission will advise government, advise His Excellency the President on what they perceive to be the issues, and the Chairman did in fact commit to having met with the full Commission at the meeting on the 15th of August, that she will thereafter communicate to His Excellency the position of the Commission. And that is what I wish to say, sir.
Thank you very much. Oh.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I could only add that a matter is now before the Supreme Court, and the chairman of the commission obviously would want to know what the Chief Justice will say, and thereafter I expect to be in touch with the chairman and the commissioners again. So right now, the government, as the Director General has pointed out, is very respectful of the role of the Elections Commission. And once I receive advice from them, from the commissioners or from the chairman of the commission, I will act on that advice. And we expect that all Guyanese will respect the independent role of the Elections Commission, and that we could proceed to general and regional elections in accordance with the work which that commission has to do. So far, that is all we have to say on what took place this morning, and we look forward to hearing from the commission in the weeks to come. Thank you very much.
Nancy Moraga, Bear Prime News. Sir, could you, given your last statement, could you say whether or not you're willing to accept the Chief Justice's ruling next week if it's not in favor of House to House? And in your brief meeting this morning, did the Commission, or did you ask the Commission about its readiness to hold the polls in a 3-month time frame?
No, we are not in the business of giving any direction to the Commission. The chairman will advise me on the readiness of the Commission. So we are not proposing any role. As far as the readiness is concerned, the commissioner, the chairman must advise me. We will provide the commission with all of the resources. We've already provided over $8 billion between November, even prior to the no confidence motion. We provided billions of dollars, and we provided again this year. So our role is just to make sure that the commission has the resources. We didn't cross-examine the commission, and we will allow the commission to do what it is authorized to do under the Constitution.
And are you ready to accept the CG's ruling next week if it's not in favor of host to host?
We are ready to pursue any legal action that we feel would lead to a favorable outcome, to have credible elections. And again, our concern is with credible elections. And we have said over and over again that if the list is flawed, it must be corrected. It is for the commission to say how it will correct that list. But as leader of the People's National Congress Reform, as chairman of a Partnership for National Unity, as president of Guyana, we are interested in credible elections. And this has been said repeatedly, and that is what we are aiming at. So we will accept any formula, any rule, or any decision which satisfies the requirements for credible elections.
So it's possible you can appeal the decision if it's not in your favor. You're open to an appeal if it's not in your favor.
I said what I said.
Going on to your source. Mr. President, sir, we've been talking a lot about the readiness of GCOM for the elections. What about the readiness of the coalition? How ready is the APNU AFC coalition for these early elections as we prepare for them?
We are preparing, we are prepared to enter elections. I think since December last year, for a period of nearly 9 months, certain preparations have been taking place. Naturally, our supporters in the coalition, in our partnership, in the respective parties, have been alerted to what needs to be done, and things are being done.
And sir, you've dispatched a response to the opposition leader, Mr. Jagdeo, with regards to the resignation of the president and the cabinet. They might want to say that we're not respecting the ruling of the CCJ. How would you respond to such a statement?
I shall meet the leader of the opposition tomorrow, Friday. Maybe his interpretation differ, but the CCJ was quite clear that it would issue no coercive orders and it cannot direct the commission when to hold elections. If ballot papers have not yet been printed, can I tell the commission to have elections on the 18th of August if they have not printed ballot papers? This is what I describe as the Abuja scenario, where on the morning of elections, the election commission called the government of Nigeria and said, we're not ready. I shall wait on the advice of the commission.
So there's been some concern expressed by the opposition leader too, with regard to the number of Haitians arriving in Guyana and his thoughts about why they might be here. We haven't heard from you about that issue, so could you?
I think with that remark, the train just ran off the rails.
Yeah, we'll keep
Are you examining a December date for elections?
What?
Are you examining a December date for elections? There's a news report to that effect.
Well, the news couldn't have come from me. We are interested in elections, in credible elections as early as possible.
Sir, but my colleague had a value question. The opposition leader is accusing the government of allowing the Haitians in the country to be registered on the voters list. How do you, even as president or party leader, respond to something like that?
That is incredible.
The allegation is incredible?
Well, opposition leaders tend to oppose. But there is no credibility. The Minister of Citizenship has stated quite clearly what his interpretation is. It seems from the analyses which have been made available to the government that many Haitians are heading for a third destination, that they're not interested in staying here and they may want to go to a third country. Again, these are all allegations, but as far as we are concerned, we want to protect the sovereignty and integrity of Guyana. We don't want to be used as a conduit for illegal migration. We already have thousands of Venezuelan migrants in the country. We are concerned about that. We know of the influx of Cubans, but suddenly there seems to be a great concern about the influx of Haitians, but my understanding is that they are not going to be involved in influencing the elections in Guyana, nor with the Cubans, nor with the Venezuelans.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
What time are you meeting with the leader of the opposition? Tomorrow?
Not before 14 hours tomorrow.
All right. You would have been viewing there yesterday's press briefing at the press room at the Ministry of the Presidency. The President and the Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency both spoke with the media briefly. It was a very, it literally was a press briefing yesterday. They spoke with the media after meeting with the GCOM commissioners. We're almost out of time today. I really wanted to bring you a clip of the President's remarks at the observation. I don't like to say celebration when it comes to death, but the observation of Lyndon Forbes Sampson's Burnham death anniversary earlier this week at the 7 Ponds area. They're at the mausoleum. That is the Botanical Gardens, in the Botanical Gardens. I'm going to keep it and bring it to you next week, even though it's going to be very stale by then, but I still want you to hear and see certain clips from it. But that particular press conference, we really pushed to it today because there are two important things that came out there. The sentiments after the meeting with the GCOM commissioners, and the President also addressed those, the same things that the Honorable Minister of Citizenship also addressed earlier in his program regarding the Haitians. But before I even talk about that, in the minute or so that we have left, I'm going to borrow a word from the President. Incredible. I found it incredible yesterday that after the President respectfully took his time and he met with the GCOM commissioners, that one of the commissioners, obviously from the opposition side, where else would that comment come from? He stood up in front of the Ministry of the Presidency and said, oh, it was a colossal waste of his time. You know, he had to use the big word to sound really fancy and all of that. I am going to say this, and I know some people are going to try to come for me for daring to criticize his statement. It was disrespectful, because when these things happen and the President takes his time or has to reschedule and ensure that there is enough time when he can meet with these, in this case, it's the GCOM commissioners. If the President had taken his time and taken too long, those same commissioners or that particular commissioner would have made some other grand, ridiculous statement. And again, when you get into the public domain and you make these statements, all you're doing is is giving away, I should say, throwing some more of your credibility to the wolves. I don't know how much is left, but if you're going to say that, you know, it basically was a colossal waste of his time, it is an insult to the President, and whether you like it or not, the Honorable Brigadier David Granger is the President of this country, and at least you should have some amount of respect. You don't have to like him, but you have to respect his office and respect him. Why? Just because at this point in time, at this juncture, he is the President of this nation. So I found that colossal waste of time statement coming from that particular GCOM commissioner was a waste of time for members of the media to even carry it as a story. But I know I'm not attacking the members of the media because they have their work to do. But it really was, I see it as disrespectful. But then again, when it comes from the opposition these days, what else can you expect? Because it seems that the only path they can go down is the disrespectful path. And I'll have to leave all my comments there for now because we are out of time. Again, those of you who are now tuning in, you missed a really comprehensive conversation, some really great details coming from the Minister of Citizenship. But I always remind you, the program can be seen on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page before the end of the day. And again, I know some of you are viewing our program currently via the CNS Channel 6 Facebook page. Thank you very much, not only for tuning into this program through that channel, but also tuning into all the other CNS live programs using the CNS Channel 6 Facebook page. That's all the time I have with you on Facing the Nation this week. Next week, we'll have another comprehensive one, and I promise you, I will try to bring back a part of the President's presentation at the observation of the Burnham death anniversary earlier this week. I think it has been 34 years, 35. I think it has been 34 years, but I stand correct if it's not, the brain is getting old. Until next time, Guyana, I am Malika Ramsey, thanking you for always watching. Be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, this has been Facing the Nation.